That's better. Let us take the music down a little bit, shall we? So that we can actually hear what we are busy doing here. So, there we go. A little bit more microphone volume. And yeah, we are live. We are live. We are live. We are definitely live. Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to this week's live streaming session. My name is Varima Henry, your host as usual. This is Do Better UX live streaming sessions brought to you by dobetterux.com. Pretty ironic, right? This sort of like the number one place where you can come to if you want a no BS approach when it comes to learning about UX design. Whether you're somebody who's trying to get into UX design, or you're somebody who's trying to hire UX designers, or maybe build a design culture within your organization. So that is what we try and do here at Do Better UX. We, create this content coming to you live every single week. We try and stream at least more than once every week, but sometimes it's just once a week. Like this week, we are just having this Thursday live streaming session. So if you want to learn more about UX design, if you're somebody who's getting into UX design, if you're somebody who just wants to find out more about UX design, no matter what background you're coming from, we try and create content designed for every different types of levels of people, for you to be able to find the perfect fit for you to learn about UX design and getting into design thinking if you are starting a career in UX design, etc. etc. So let's see how we are doing on the stream, so we can see that we got some people watching. Hello. People, please do let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. I am joining you as usual from Johannesburg, South Africa. That's where I am from, and I mainly do product design and really help people who want to learn more about UX design get to it through our platform, Do Better UX. You can find all the links in the description below, about the things that we're going to be talking about and referencing throughout this session here. I will be taking up some questions, but feel free to throw them over in the chat section. If you're watching this after the fact, feel free to throw them in the comment section below, or join us over on our design community on LinkedIn. If you just search Do Better UX, you should be able to find us. Otherwise, just click on the link in the description section below. You should be able to find our design community. Join us there. Feel free to interact with other people, ask questions that you want to ask. That way you can actually interact with me on a daily basis, and be able to just ask questions as you might wish. For people who have been watching this, you might see that my background is changing around a little bit. My children asked me that if I can change it to make it this multicolor thing. Please let me know how it makes you feel, if it's something that is distracting or something that might be working better for you actually. Yeah, they say it might feel better, and I can change the color, so why not, right? So yeah, let's jump right into today's session, shall we? After a lot of blabbering, just trying to make sure that we sound and everything is working before we get going. So today we want to talk about our session today. We want to talk about, is UX design hard to learn? This is a very common question that I find being asked around the internet quite a lot. I do get requests myself around answering this question as well, and people ask me, what is the learning curve like? What do I have to go through? What is it like to actually, become a UX designer? And I'm going to try and explain it in two different ways. If you're coming from sort of like a designy background type of thing, and if you're not coming from a design background, you're coming from some other backgrounds that is not necessarily design background or design oriented background rather, that way you will be coming from, let's say, multimedia, analytics, teaching, anything else. And the good thing about this that I want to get right off the bat is that I think anybody can get into UX design. I think, UX design requires quite a bit of different backgrounds and different things that you can do with it. And you can really jump into, becoming a UX designer, even if you don't necessarily, have a design background. So that is number one that I would like to sort of bring out there and get out of the way right off the bat. So you don't have to have a design background to become a UX designer. You can become a UX designer even without a design background. Actually, you can bring a lot of qualities into the specific UX design role that you're playing. Whether you are doing UX research, whether you're doing interviews and qualitative type of stuff, where you're sitting down with people, you're doing interviews. Some people who come from psychology backgrounds and analyst backgrounds really do well in those roles. So I'm going to talk about it in those two different ways, and I just wanted to get that off the bat right away before we jump into the main things that we want to cover today. So we're going to cover a couple of things today, so the areas you need to be focusing on learning, sort of like the available types of methods that you can learn UX design online. I'm going to try not to be biased about that because I'm also trying to teach people about UX design online, just taking all the BS that you usually find with it, sort of like the books and materials that you need to get started. And, some of the methods that I think are great for you to fast track your learning journey, whether you're trying to get into UX design, UI design, product design, whatever you want to call it. So let's jump right into it. So starting off, I want to talk about the focus you need, sort of like the areas you need to focus on when learning about UX design. And really this depends on what are you trying to pursue in your UX design career. Now, if you go on our channel, you'll be able to find other, I recently did a series earlier on this year in January, which really covered topics around getting started into UX design, the things that you need to, sort of like learn and the differences and things like that. But I'm just going to go over it here, but you can check that link out in the description below to that playlist. Check out that whole playlist. I think it's about 4 videos in there. If you watch them, you'll really be able to get a 360 view of how the whole thing works when you're trying to get started in UX design. But today I want to focus about the learning part of design and take a little bit of a deep dive in that. So the areas that you really need to focus on, I think number one is that you really need to choose what you want to focus on when it comes to UX design or UI design. You will see online when you go, looking for job posts and things like that, looking for gigs, you'll find a lot of, people looking for UX, UI designers. You find a lot of people looking for product designers. You find, UX engineers. You find all these different titles and roles, and you really need to be able to determine what those mean to you. So things like UX engineer, probably talking about somebody who who wants to get into UX design, but probably has got coding skills, engineering skills. Basically, that's what you would be saying. Coding and engineering, and when it comes to that, it really comes with what background are you coming from and what, things are you trying to achieve, with your career, and which path are you trying to follow. So, choosing what you want to do, probably the next, whatever amount of years in your career would really be able to help you focus in a specific path, so whether you're focusing on really building the interfaces or you're focusing on analytics and research, there's all these different areas in UX design that you can choose from. So the first thing that I would do if I was looking to learn UX design and really get into UX design and take a deep dive is to try and get some focus and understand what is it that I'm trying to be doing for the next couple of years. Am I trying to be really focusing on user interaction, which is, looking at the actual user interface, diving down into, into the technical bits of buttons and design systems and how things work, etc., etc. If you want to focus on something else, I'm just trying to deal with something here. If you want to focus on, more of a UX role, you're probably looking at, more of a research type of role. And also it depends on what background you're coming from, so if you're coming from a more design oriented background, you might want to get more into, a UI type of role. If you're coming from a more analytics, it all depends what your appetite is to learn new skills, new methods of doing things. And, if you want to diversify, maybe you are somebody who is, a seasoned UI designer and you really just want to get into UX design and you want to get into the mechanics of how do things work to actually get to the UI designs that you make at the end of the day. So that is the first thing that I want to cover, sort of like choosing with which path you want to take, and then really focusing on that specific path and taking it right. And then the next thing that I want to talk about is that, since we're talking about learning UX design in this specific case, I'm not going to be, going so deep dive into, UX design, but I'm just going to, try and into UI design rather. I'm just going to try and cover the different, things that you need to consider at every different level. So when you're talking about, if you really want to focus on UX design or product design and, become that person who is the go-to person for UX design and product design, I think some of the things that really make people stand out as UX designers is learning, different methodologies around, setting things up, putting things together, brainstorming sessions, things like that, really being able to guide people through the discovery phases of a project, be able to help people define what problem they're trying to solve, be able to find that solution with them and be able to guide them through that process. So there are a couple of things that you can learn. My personal favorite one is design sprint. I have ran quite a bit of design sprints in my life. Not so much these days anymore. I focused into slightly different type of work, but I think design sprints are sort of like a great tool and methodologies for people who are getting into UX design would want to learn. There's a lot of different activities and methodologies in this process, or in this recipe rather, that you can apply individually. There's things like prototyping, there's things like the crazy eights coming out with ideas that can help you sort of like diverge, to go in and look for different solutions and then help you prioritize and decide and come up with the actual solution that you want to. There's other things that you can learn as well that are out there on the internet. I think design sprints is really one of my favorite one, and we are going to go into some of the books and recommendations of things that I would subscribe to you to get you started, right? So that is with UX design. I think you really need to play around with frameworks, different types of methodologies and way to do things, really understanding things like, the lean model canvas, understanding business models and how they work, understanding how to structure user interviews and how to, do prototyping and things like that, right? How do you actually go through those processes and, sort of like the different methods and things like that. So yeah, my personal recommendation of, sort of like helping you stand out and having, a lot of skills that would, help you run meetings and conversations and stuff, this book here, Sprint, is something that I would highly recommend for anybody who is looking into UX design and learning about different methodologies. I will share some other resources in the description below around this, which have got different workshops and things that you can apply as well. I'll actually have to edit the description of the live streaming session. I think at the moment I don't have some of those links, but I will definitely add those links in the description below. So if you're watching this after the fact, you'll definitely be able to find the other links that are related to the sprint, to the design sprint, and things that can help you with brainstorming and running meetings and getting decisions made fast. So that is a personal favorite of mine and something that I would recommend, but I would really recommend you to go out there and play around with different frameworks and different methodologies, design thinking methodologies. Look at the processes, the human-centered design process, the design thinking process, how those things work. Bear in mind that they're not linear processes. Again, we have videos in that series, links in the description, where we talk about, some of these things in depth. So yeah, play around with frameworks, different methodologies and things like that. Really immerse yourself in that and learn about those things if you're looking to get really focused into UX design. Now, if you're looking to be more of a UI designer, looking at user interfaces and building user interactions and things like that, you really want to be, more of a technical person. One big advantage that I found in most UI designers, one thing to learn if you're getting into UI design, rather, from people who are coming from things like web design and things like, graphic design. I think there's a lot that graphic designers bring to the table, but I think user interface design is a whole different game, because it really plays well with the solution that you are having in the UX research and findings and things that you have put together, right? So they are interlinked in some way or another, or some way or more than one, right? One thing that I really found that makes really good UI designers is understanding design systems, in particular the atomic design system. So if you just look up the atomic design system, I think it's by a gentleman called Brad Frost. It's really a great way to approach how to deal with your libraries of buttons and widgets and things like that, usually referred to as components in the instance of design systems. And this really helps you not only organize your work better, but be able to easily go through design upgrades and things like that. So if you're coming from the days of Photoshop or doing something like Adobe XD and things like that, I would really recommend looking into learning a lot about design systems. If you're someone who's coming from a design background already, let's say you're an illustrator or a graphic designer or web designer, learning about design systems is something that will really help you get to the top of how UI design works and how user interfaces work, and it will be easier for you to sort of scale from there to be able to apply some of the other design skills that you already have. And if you're looking for what is the tool, the number one tool that you should be focusing on learning if you're looking into getting into UI design, I know there's a couple of tools on the market. You will have Adobe XD, you'll have Sketch, but my big recommendation really is an app called Figma. Figma is sort of like the industry standard right now, because it's almost like it's a web application basically. It's free, it's easy to use, it's easy to learn, it's really easy for you to be able to get access to it. If you have internet access, you should be able to get a free access to it. I think they have a trial option that has about one or two projects, and in that project you can have as many different artboards and things like that you can play around with. So it's really a great tool for you to be able to adopt, and I think it's the tool that is going to become the industry standard going forth, looking into the future, coming sort of like the successor of Sketch. You might see a lot of tutorials and things that are happening in Sketch at the moment, but I think with Figma it really is inclusive when it comes to having being accessible both on Windows and Mac. So it's not only a Mac software like you would with Sketch. So you can run it on any operating system really, whether you're running Linux or you're running Windows or you're running Mac, or I don't know, anything else really that might be out there that I don't know of. So learning about design systems and really focusing on getting grips around Figma. If you haven't already learned Figma or don't know about it, definitely that is something that you should get on the bandwagon. And even if you have experience in Sketch, I would still highly recommend that you have a look at Figma and how it works. There's a lot of similarities between the two apps, but I would highly recommend that you start using Figma just to play around and get your head around that. And the last thing, obviously, if you want to be a UI designer and you really want to be able to stand out, is to be the person who stays on top of UI design trends and things like that. Not only the things that you see on Dribble and on Behance, but really things that are making waves in mainstream applications. So if you see something that is being commonly used between so let's say there's a small micro interaction that is being used between Apple, Google, and let's say Twitter, for example, then that is a really big thing to consider. That becomes a pattern or a rather familiar thing that people see every day, and including some of those things, design patterns can really help you relate with your users and help your products or the things that you're designing be more usable really. So those are some of the things, if you really want to focus on being a UI designer, that I would recommend, learning a lot about design systems and focusing on Figma and, really staying up to date with UI trends, etc., etc. Moving over to the next section, I want to talk about, so where do you actually learn UX design? How do you approach learning UX design? And there's a lot of information online, including the ones we're creating now, right? But hopefully this will create a little bit of clarity around, how you can navigate the soup of information and how you can go about it. So focusing on how you learn, I think it really comes to an individual level. What is your style of learning? How are you used? How do you learn on an everyday basis? Like myself, I'm not a person who would like to commit myself to a 3 month or 1 year or, an even 4-year degree or course or whatever it is. I'm really like a learning on the go type of person. I like learning from, quick, short courses on Skillshare, for example. I like to learn on from other people that I work with. I like to learn on YouTube and from, blog posts on Medium, etc., etc. So I'm going to talk about some of those things and what I think about them. And I think the main ones are really free online courses, paid online courses, online boot camps, which is like really fast-tracked courses basically, and you've got YouTube and blog posts on Medium, and I think I would also include podcasts in this one, but yeah, so there's a lot of free online courses that you can find online. I will link to a blog post that I wrote about getting started in UX design, and you can find out different resources there, things that you can do within South Africa, out of South Africa, etc. There is a lot of online courses that are self-paced. Some of them are paid, some of them are not, but there's definitely a lot of free good UX design courses that you can check out there. Again, link in the description below to the blog post for you to be able to check those out. And I think this really comes back to what type of person you are. If you're somebody who is more want to be committed to a very systematic way of learning, I would recommend this. If you have no idea what UX design is and you really want to start from scratch, find something that can take you through a roadmap of learning from the basics, fundamentals, to sort of like the technical advanced stuff. You can also check out some of the videos on our website. Here on our LinkedIn, what am I saying? Here on our YouTube channel, and depending on what you want to learn, you can choose and pick. But again, that's why I would recommend an online course that is a little bit more systematic, that is a little bit more sort of like linear in the way that you approach it and that you learn. So if you're that type of person that's looking for a little bit more type of formal type of learning, and you're looking for something a little bit more linear that you can follow along, the other cool thing about online courses is that you have other people that are doing it as well. You probably have moderators that are helping you moderate the thing. It depends on which online course you're doing and what type of online course you're doing and on which platform you're doing it on. So there's things like Skillshare, there's things like Udemy, there's one particular website that I would want to highly recommend, but the name is just running out of my head right now, and it's a really good free UX design course, and it's just not coming through. I'm trying to look it up. Future Learn. Yeah, there we go. Cool. But again, all of this stuff will be in the blog post that I will put in the description below. So like Future Learn has got a really good, if you're starting from the basics, you'll be able to find, if you just look up free UX design courses, online, you should be able to find them. So this is the deal with online courses. You have other people that you can interact with. You usually have moderators depending on which platform you are on, so you have a little bit of community and other people to do activities with around you. Sometimes it's just a bunch of videos that you can follow, and they give you sort of like homework or takeaways that you can sort of like go in and do, but it's really a more linear type of way of style of learning. So depending on what type of style of learning you prefer, you might want to choose online courses or not, if you want to do something that is a little bit more linear. Moving on to boot camps. Boot camps are basically a more fast-paced online course. What can I say? A more fast-paced online course, basically, so you are going through a lot of information in very, short amounts of work. These are usually done, were usually done in person, where you would go into a classroom and they'll take you through a couple of activities and theory work, etc. You can still find a lot of online UX design boot camps today, and you can actually interact with people. I think it's a great way to network with other designers. I think there's even a higher level of engagement and, being able to see people in a more live environment than, most of the online courses where everybody's passive and doing their own thing in the background, and, it's more interacting via chat, whereas with boot camps, you're usually working in groups and teams and, working towards a common goal, so it's a little bit, more higher paced, more high energy, more interactive, and a little bit more intense, honestly, when it comes to, really being able to keep up with the pace, of packing a lot of information in a week or 3 days or even a day, some of them that I've seen. But I think boot camps are really great if you're somebody who wants to get in and get a big flash of all the information that you need, and then that way you can take that as reference points and go in and start applying this stuff as you learn things on the go on an everyday basis. When it comes to YouTube is a great place to learn. We are here right now. You are learning from YouTube videos. I think YouTube, for me personally, is a great free resource of learning about UX design. The only problem about YouTube is that you don't know how to filter the good stuff from the bad ones. You don't know if you are learning the stuff you're actually supposed to be learning or not. It's hard to navigate. That's why I'm trying to create this type of content that can help you navigate what to look out for, not really teach you the stuff, but help you how to filter out the stuff that's already out there. Because I think that there's really some great content that you can consume out there, but it's really hard for you to be able to, filter through most of the stuff that you would find online, and you don't know if the quality is good or bad, right? So I hope that information like this that I'm having on this live streaming session here can help you sort of guide your way around, and again, if you want a very in-depth wealth of information that I've invested in 4 videos, which is probably about more than 4 hours long, because about each video is like 45 minutes to an hour or so. Check out the playlist to the Getting Started in UX Design series that we did earlier on this year. But I think YouTube is a wonderful place for you to be able to learn if you know what you're looking for. Otherwise you might get very bombarded with sort of like not being able to know what to look at, rather. And the last one that I want to talk about is, if you are somebody who's into reading. Personally, I prefer YouTube because I find reading a little bit difficult because I'm a little bit dyslexic. That word. So it's really hard for me to read. I have a little bit of a learning issue. So watching video is really easy for me, and that's why I like creating video as well, because I think it helps other people out there that are like me, that don't necessarily have the ability to read long amounts of text. But if you are somebody who likes reading, or who finds pleasure in reading, I try and read. I find pleasure in reading, but if I'm trying to learn something, I learn it quicker in video format. But if you're somebody who would like to scan through words, and that is something that is your preferred way of consuming information, there are people who just prefer reading to watching video or listening to spoken word. I think Medium is a great place for you to learn about UX design from different places. I would almost say Medium is the text version of YouTube when it comes to the wealth of information that you would find there, but it also comes with the same difficulty of being able to filter out what is good stuff, what is not, what are you actually supposed to be learning in this part of your career or not? Should you just read the next blog post about UX design or not? It's a little bit hard, but it's really a great way for you to be able to, follow the people that, are giving you great information and knowledge. We tried to run a blog on Medium, and we decided not to stay on Medium purely because of the fact that it's a paid platform, and we really wanted to give people the information for free. So we decided to move all of our content over onto our dobetterux.com website. That way, people can access it for free, ad-free, without any sort of like upsells or things like that. Feel free to, if you want to learn about UX design and things like that, we do have a blog over on dobetterux.com, but I think Medium is a great place for you to find a way more vast and diverse world of information and knowledge from people, right? So I think the key thing about the two platforms, YouTube and Medium, is that it's content that is built and put out there by actual people, right? Like people like you and me, working in the real world, creating stuff, making mistakes, and coming to teach you about the experiences, basically, which is what I'm also trying to do here on the Do Better UX channel. So yeah, YouTube, Medium, great places to be at if you want to learn more. I spoke about bootcamps being very Frustrate, but very high interaction in there. Obviously, online courses, some of them don't have any interaction at all, but they're a way more linear approach for you to be able to learn, way more linear and structured approaches, the bootcamps and the online courses. The only difference there is really the pace and the levels of interaction that you might find in them. I want to get to a couple of books to read. So I've already shared the first one with you, which is Sprint. This is a book by John Zareski and a guy called Jack Knapp. There you go. It says how to solve big problems and test ideas in just 5 days. I think it's a little bit of a clickbait type of thing, but I think in here you'll learn very interesting methods and ways of running workshops, how to do user journeys, how to get to prototyping and testing your designs, in a very rapid way. This is a great way for, teams to move really quickly. And I think, it's a great book to have on your shelf if you're a UX designer or product designer, somebody who's getting into UX design. The next one that I want to share with you guys is a book called Design of Everyday Things. I don't have it with me personally. If you haven't read it already or ever heard about any other person talking about UX design or learning UX design or about UX design books, Design of Everyday Things is a book by a gentleman called Don Norman, who is basically the grandfather of UX design, the guy who coined the term UX design itself. It's a really great book. It really gives you a holistic approach around what user experience is. He talks about things that are very far from our everyday way of thinking when it comes to UX design, really thinking about digital products. He talks about different, user interfaces, talking about, the car cockpit as a user interface. You've got all the knobs and things, for you to be able to control the vehicle. It's a really great book for you to get a 360 perspective of what user experience design is and how to approach it, and how to solve user problems, and how not to design really silly things like doors where you have a handle but you actually need to push it, right? And you always have people pulling the door handle when they need to push it. So great book. I don't have it in physical form with me here, but it's really a great book. So that's Design of Everyday Things. And the last book that I want to share with you is really a recipe book. I use this book to help me with getting workshops and things like that. It's called Design a Better Business. So here's the book here. So Design a Better Business. It's a great book. It's got different frameworks that can really help you, run different sessions with your teams. It's got different frameworks that you can use for discovery sessions, for brainstorming sessions. And let me see if I can look at the chapters here. So you see, it's got like tools, core skills, hacks, visual stuff that you can use. Really, helping you to go through preparation of a process. Let's see if I can show you this. Going through, all the different steps here, and it really helps you with they've got like different methods and explain how to do them. I find this book really cool because it has got all these different frameworks in here, and the cheat sheets on how to actually use them and how to approach them. It's really a great book for somebody who is getting into design, and it's again, all of this stuff is recommendations and things that you can use, here and there, pick up the things that you need, the things that you don't need out of it. Use what you can. There's always different clients and context of products and conversations and situations that we work in. So don't be stuck to one process. Really find the process that works for different situations. Don't try and make one process the silver bullet for everything. So yeah, those are the three main books that I would recommend. There's many more that I would recommend, but I think if you want to find out more about that, follow us on our social media channels. We are on Twitter and on Instagram, or over on our Do Better UX LinkedIn group. We've got designers, design thinkers, and other people that are like you if you're watching this channel right now. That way you'll be able to interact with them live. That way we'll be able to share the different books that we are reading at different times. And it's not only me telling you about the books that I find interesting, but yeah, I think it would be a cool thing to start a little design book club conversation in our group. So yeah, link with us there, and I will share more with you there. But these are the main top three books, so that is Design of Everyday Things, the Design Sprint by Jack Knapp, the one that I have here, and Design a Better Business, which is this one here. Cool. So what are some of the things that can help you fast track your learning journey? These are things that have really, helped me in my personal, career. And I think above all, the biggest thing that has helped me my whole career fast track my learning journey is to really be open to the people that I work with, whether despite of what role they play, right, or how senior or low they are. I found a lot of, it doesn't take a lot to listen, right? Like listening is a really big skill, but it doesn't take a lot to listen. And just by listening and looking at what works in different environments and, has really helped me figure out what I should be learning, when I should be learning things. That way I would, figure out, okay, this is what works in this specific company on this specific project, and that way I'll be very quick to be able to find out more information about that specific task or methodology or process that they do. So a very big advantage for me, that I've used over the years is really learning from the people that I work with, despite, the seniority level, and how to figure out, what to learn from these people or who to learn from is that you really look at the bright spots, right? You really look at the parts of the team that you think are really performing well, the players of the team that you really think are performing well. Those are the people that you want to get close to you and try and figure out, how do they communicate with stakeholders? How do they get to where they are? What are some of the things that they use? And most of these things that they use is not, your everyday methodologies and all of that stuff that you find there, but you find out that it's really about the way that they communicate with people in that specific context, the language and tone that they use with specific stakeholders and things like that, really help them push the agenda of building better products faster. So learning on the job, I think personally, is the best way to be able to fast track your learning journey. That way you'll be able to navigate what is it that you need to learn at different times, and you'll be able to figure out those things that you need to learn. And obviously once you figure out what you need to learn, it's easy to get access, to that, whether you are somebody who wants to go more of a linear, long approach of, online classes, you want to attend a boot camp, you want to jump over on YouTube or Medium to get, a quick bite of how to do a specific thing or a process, or, the best framework to approach that specific scenario or whatever it is. So that is what I would recommend to you if you're looking for fast tracking your way of learning. Really pay attention to the bright spots within your teams, find out what's working for those individuals and apply it to your life, to your career basically as well, so that you're able to get onto the level or even better. So having said that, that wraps up our session for today. I hope that I have provided you with some value of helping you figure out if learning UX design is really hard. And I think learning UX design depends on which background you're coming from. What are you trying to do? Personally, I think it could be a hard learning curve for some people. I think with personality types as well, and depending on what you want to focus on. So obviously, if you want to focus on more customer research and speaking with people, things like that, and you're not really an extrovert, that could be a really learning curve, a long learning curve for you to get into, when it comes to interacting with people and communication and things like that, right? But it could also be a very easy learning curve if you are, let's say, somebody who's coming from a UI design background and you're looking into doing, you're an extrovert, you're easy to speak with people, and you're looking into doing things like user testing and customer research and things like that. That way you can easily learn of the most of the things. But I think anyone can learn UX design. Anyone can get into UX design despite what background you come from. You don't have to be coming from a design background. I hope this session really helped you spark some of the things that you should think about, how you should think about them, and how you should approach them. So if you have any questions and you would like to discuss more, please do consider joining us over on our LinkedIn community. Again, links in the description below. Check out our website where we have other content. Like I mentioned earlier on, we have moved our blog post there over from Medium. We are trying to create more content on it, not really on a more regular basis, but on a more valuable basis, so what we try to do is that most of the questions that we get answered, we create content around that way, we know that we're really creating value content of the people that are reading it or consuming it. We also have a podcast called Not a UX Designer. If you would like to check that out, again, link is in the description below. Otherwise, Not a UX Designer is available wherever you might be listening to your podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc. There's so many of them out there. We just try and distribute to as much of the main ones as we can. So until next week, if you enjoyed this session and you would like to not miss any of the upcoming sessions, please do consider subscribing to the channel and like this video if you want this video to be shared to other people that might find this also useful. So if you like the channel, if you like the video, it really just helps kick in the YouTube algorithm to be able to help other people discover this video as well. So until the next one, I'm your host, Varima Henry, and I'm out.